Thank you so much for having me here. I'm nervous. It's a big room of people, and when I signed up to do this, I was like, oh yeah, I can do a talk. I always talk about bourbon. That's easy. But then it was like, I got to talk about myself and my personal change, and so I'm kind of nervous and excited. So my hands are sweating, and I'm clammy. So bear with me through this. But thank you all so much for being here. I was told this sold out in 15 minutes or registered or whatever. And I'm like, that's just incredible. And I know it's probably not because of me specifically. It's because bourbon. Yes. Actually, one of my good friends and I got this term down a few years ago for many reasons. She's here today. So we would just blame things on bourbon. We just say because bourbon. And honestly, because bourbon has become a theme of change in my life for a long time now, really concentrating on the last 2 years, but I'm going to give you a little bit about me too, my history. But before I get started, I want to tell you, I'm here to talk about the topic of change. And I was kind of like, I haven't done anything super profound. I'm 30, I'll be 31 tomorrow. So what have I done in this world to talk about? But then I started thinking, and actually had a coworker say, well, how is it going out to Woodford every day? And I was like, that is a big change. And light bulb, I can talk about the change that my life has been under once taking on this role as master taster. But other words that kind of touch on change or that are synonyms for it are adjust, develop, modify, and shift. Those are just a few, but those are ones that I felt were good themes for my life and my career and what's been going on. So because bourbon, think about that. Now this is just a slide that takes that's me on a slide. I can't give a speech about my life and changing and how I got here without talking about all these things. They're all very important. So that's my fiance and I, and then that's my cat Newman. I'm working really hard to make Newman a Instagram sensation. He actually made it on Reddit, so I'm very proud of that. So he's quite a character. Bikram yoga, I love doing my yoga. I don't get to do it as much anymore. Bourbon, because bourbon. Green Hill Therapy, I am a board member for Green Hill Therapy. I think it's so important to get involved with your community. I was like, back when I was single and had a great job, and I thought, I need to give back, and how can I do that? And so I got involved. I found Green Hill Therapy through brown-forman. It's a nonprofit that works with children with disabilities, physically mainly, but then also on the spectrum of autism. And they work with horses. Horses is my other huge passion in life. And so I didn't know before getting involved with Green Hill that horses, I knew the mental therapy that horses give because I go out all the time and it's therapy to me. But physically, the way that they walk can help a kid that is confined to a wheelchair. They actually can learn how to walk based on that movement and learn how to breathe better and engage their core muscles. So I love Green Hill, and I'm going to talk about that again later. And then down here, that's my horse, Cody Co. He and I have been together for over 10 years now. That is the longest relationship I've ever been in. So it's been a good one. We've had a good ride together. He's 25 years old now, so he's retired, and we don't get to do very much because bourbon. And we had a really good career of winning lots of awards, and I got lots of exposure to that, and now we just trail ride and hang out, and he eats grass, and I watch him. And the other thing I'm involved in is Younger Women's Club, another way to get involved in the community. It's a great network of women, but it also is a great way to kind of touch a lot of different organizations without having to directly put my time in with it. I do it so I can do it kind of at small increments instead of going everywhere. And then the other thing over here, it's my family. Family is so important to me. They are my everything. So that was my 30th birthday last year. We went to Jim Porter's, which RIP Jim Porter's. And I wanted to have a big blowout and just have a lot of fun. So we went to Jim Porter's. It's my little brother. He is a very creative person. He is in Chicago living his dream as a starving artist. He's a dance major. He's actually in 2 dance companies, and then he works for The Gap. He's fabulous. I love him. And I miss him dearly. Then those are my parents who raised 3 very unique, crazy kids. And so we have family dinner night every Sunday at their house. And then that's my big brother and his wife, Jamie. They're both teachers, so in JCPS, go public schools. And I'm a graduate from public school, Ballard High School. And that's my big brother. He's a teacher at Wagner High School, and he's also the varsity basketball coach for Wagner High School. They have kicked serious ass. He's done so many good things, and he impacts so many lives every day, and he doesn't even talk about it. And he was recognized last summer, and I'm just so impressed with my brother driving kids home if he needs to, whatever he has to do, he makes it happen for them. And then last but not least is Woodford Reserve in the middle, because I would not be here talking to you if it wasn't for Woodford Reserve. It is, in my opinion, the greatest bourbon brand. It is the greatest liquid you can consume that is a bourbon. And it also has the greatest distillery you can ever visit. It's beautiful. And the people out there. The people are what are from our brand team all the way to the people that are out there filling barrels. I mean, last night I was working second shift with the bottling crew and just having fun. I mean, I was so excited to get to be a part of that. Granted, I didn't love staying on second shift and being there super late last night and getting up early this morning, but I love being able to be a part of all of it, and I just love how much everybody out there loves Woodford and is happy to be there. So I'll get started on my story of me and how I got to be here today. So that's me when I was a little girl. I just enjoy that picture because I'll have my cake and eat it too. So that's me around 7 years old. I loved wearing crop tops. That's definitely a crop top that I'm wearing in that photo. You can't tell. But when I was a little girl, I struggled in school, and I actually had a teacher who told my mother this, not me. I was completely oblivious to it. She's just not going to be one of those kids who does well in school. So I didn't know. I mean, what I remember from elementary school in this time period of my life, being at that school, was sitting at a desk with a stack of books so high and being like, so I had that vision in front of me, but then what was going on outside the windows was way cooler. I mean, there were birds chirping, and I'm like, what are those birds doing? And are they friends? Are they in a relationship? Like, are they, I mean, I was thinking of all these things, and I remember just sitting there wanting to be out there with the birds, not in that classroom. So after that meeting, my mom was really pissed, and so was my dad, but my mom has all this sass. So then we went to another school, and I immediately switched schools and went to this other school, got tested, I had ADD, go figure. So I use that. It's not a crutch. I don't use it as a crutch, but I definitely use it. I use it to this day. It is my excuse for except for bourbon, it's my other excuse for why I forget things or back into my fiance's car when it's right behind me. So that is that. But so I started out in this kind of, you're not going to really do that great. And I like to say that my mom would love this next slide, is that I prove them wrong. So this is kind of my journey, which I think a lot of you will find interesting. I think in this role, a lot of people think, oh, you're in bourbon, you probably have some kind of chemistry major. No, I am psychology background. So really, I'm just messing with you all right now, all the time. People think that when I'm doing tastings, they're like, wait a minute, so you're a psychologist? You're just messing with us. I'm like, yes, I'm just giving you the hint on things, and you're really not tasting that. I'm just suggesting it, which we all know, power of suggestion. But it is a good tool to have. But I got my undergrad in psychology. I didn't know what the heck I was going to do with that. So then I thought, well, I'll just go back to school and get my master's in counseling psychology, because I thought, I'm going to help people. I'm going to be a therapist. I'm going to have my own office, have my own hours. It's going to be great. That's a really, really hard thing to do. So anybody who does it awesome. I'm so proud of you. It wasn't for me, especially when I was at my little brother's graduation party. So my little brother's 6 years younger than me. He wasn't a surprise, but yeah. So he was graduating from high school, and I was graduating from my master's program at U of L. And I was talking about having to find a job and how I was just dreading it. I mean, the stress that I felt of people coming to me and wanting me to solve their problems was just so overwhelming. And I was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna have to do this every day. What was I thinking? And then a man who worked at Brown-Forman was standing there, and he said, oh, you're looking for a job? Well, you know, we just had somebody quit in our sensory department, and we hire psychologists. So how about you send me your resume? And I was like, done and done. And he's trying to sell me on it. He's like, well, you know, he's not really, he's trying to sell me on it, but also let me know that it's just a technician job. You're just going to be washing dishes and setting up taste panels. Really unexciting. And he was like, but you do have to recruit people. And I was like, whatever, I'm doing it. Alcohol, like, sign me up. So it sounded a lot better than doing therapy all the time. So that was my start, was as a sensory technician at Brown-Forman. So I literally had no idea what I was doing. I didn't know that bourbon was clear at first, that it gets all of its color from the barrel. No clue. I was like, wow, that's so cool. And I was just so nervous about having to, we had all these methods. Like in the sensory world, you have methods that and procedures, and there's even some chemistry involved, and I hated chemistry. Like, I did it in high school because I had to. College, I avoided it like the plague. I was like, I'm doing arts. I'm arts. So I had to learn all these things, these skills, but I just kept learning and growing and had this hunger to want to know stuff. I mean, the advantage you have working for an alcohol company is that well, not everybody, but a lot of people think that alcohol is cool. So I wanted to know a lot so that I could share it with everyone, and I just wanted to be super knowledgeable. So sensory technician, then as I took on more, I was really in the quality control realm, and I started really nerding out on quality, and I was like, sensory is so important, and everybody needs to care about it at every plant, everywhere, and all of our global facilities. And some other people actually agreed with me on that. So then my role kind of blossomed, and I traveled to Finland, to our Finlandia plant, Chambord in France, Netherlands, where we have a kind of a big production facility over there, down to Mexico, to our Casa facility, Canada, to where Canadian Mist and Collingwood are made. So I got to travel to all of our, not to mention then Jack Daniels and Woodford, of course. That was my first love affair. That's where my love affair with Woodford began, was in the sensory lab, getting to drive out to Woodford Reserve and through all the horse fields, and then this beautiful distillery comes upon you. So I worked hard at getting quality control and sensory to be a big thing. And so it was learning that role and kind of impressing that upon other people to make a change and to change the programs we had in place there. And so I made it to Associate Sensory Scientist. And in this role, then I was kind of thinking, okay, I know a lot, but I want to know more. And Brown-Forman used to have this program called the Senior Quality, or I'm sorry, I don't even know what I'm talking about, had a Spirits Academy. And so I got my name on the list. I was put on the wait list, but then luckily somebody couldn't go because it was pretty much just for marketing and salespeople. It wasn't for people who worked in the lab. And I'm in the lab, which is, I call the armpit of the company. The building's gross. It's not like the glamorous Brown-Forman that you're typically used to seeing when you walk in. So I'm back there, but I made it into Spirits Academy with Chris Morris. And Chris Morris is on our taste panels. He knew kind of who I was, but he didn't know my name. But he ran the Spirits Academy. And so I, not even trying to be putting myself out there in front of him, but just because I was a nerd, or I am a nerd, really wanted to help out. So I was, can I help you set up these tastings? Can I help you with your glasses? Asking lots of questions like about vodka and liqueurs and bourbon and whiskey and all the different types of whiskey. And I just wanted to know, and I wanted to be armed so that when people are like, what's the difference between bourbon and whiskey? I don't have to go, oh, let me Google it. So I worked hard at that, and that was when, I guess, Chris, and I didn't know that they were looking for people to go into this master taster role. Chris Morris he's not old, but he's got to retire someday. So he's got to figure out people that he's grooming to learn a lot. And I will never know as much as Chris Morris. I was just saying earlier that he is like, what's it like working with him? It's like having your life narrated, and he knows something about everything. Even like you're driving down the road, and he's like, oh yes, that rock over there. Well, that was once a building from the 1800s, and blah blah blah. And I'm like, how do you know that? And I'm going to tell another funny story about Chris Morris, is that he goes to the library, and I'm forgetting that this is recorded right now so he can see it. Chris, you're great. But he goes to the library. He is my boss. He goes to the library, and I love that about him, and he checks out books, and he checked out a picture book, which I just thought was a funny thing too, a picture book. And he wanted one on the beetles, or not the beetles, but on beetle bugs. And he learned about beetle bugs. And I'm like, that's why you know so much, because you do things like that. And that's amazing. And I need to be more like that, or more people should be like that. Anyways, I'm getting off track. But so Chris Morris asked me if I wanted to take on the role to become, or to train for master taster. And so I immediately said yes. I love the thought of being able to talk to people about our products. And at that time, I was talking about both Old Forester and Woodford Reserve, and just learning and getting to work with him and travel and all that kind of stuff. So I was really excited about it. So let me go. So yes, I get paid to drink bourbon is my next slide, because now that's kind of the question I get asked a lot, because now in my role as master taster, I do essentially get paid to drink bourbon all the time. But so a big thing happened when taking on that role. I remember talking to Chris about this, and I remember it was kind of a daunting thing to think about. And he can talk about it very well, because he is the master distiller for brown-forman and for Woodford Reserve and Old Forester. But more, he's our go-to guy in brown-forman. And he talked about kind of this ceiling that, once you sign up to do this role, this is your role. You don't get to switch and go, okay, I'm done being master taster, I'm done being master distiller, now I want to go and be VP of marketing or this or that. You can't do that. This is what you're doing. And now you're representing the company. And it was kind of one of those whoa moments of, now I'm not just Elizabeth O'Neill who walks on the street, and I mean, in brown-forman, its employees always pride itself on representing themselves well, but now I'm not just representing myself, I'm actually put out there to represent brown-forman and Woodford Reserve, and at the time it was Old Forester, and that was a lot to kind of think about. And then also, if I start down this path, it's like, that's what I'm doing with my career at brown-forman. I'm not going to get to deviate and try to go into finance. Not that I would ever do that, but maybe if you wanted to, or sales or anything like that. This is my commitment, and this is what I'm doing, and it's a lot of freaking work and a lot of freaking time. Do you really want to do this? And it was really nice of him to kind of lay it out like that, and I appreciated it a lot. But of course, I still said yes, because it's the dream job. It's like, I have the best job ever. I'm sorry. No. But so this was the only photo I could find from when I was in training. So there's Chris, and this is the trip down to Nashville took with Chris. And we drove down together. It was my first car ride. I was really nervous. But you don't have to be worried about being nervous with Chris, because he fills up the time with talking. And so the whole time we're driving down to Nashville, and I'm telling you, he was like, and we're passing Hodgenville. Now, do you know, Mumfordville. Do you know who was born in Mumfordville? I'm like, at the time I didn't know, but now I know. It was George Garvin Brown. So, and then there was another spot where his family's from, and just all kinds of stuff. And we just it was a great trip. And, but I was so excited. I was like, ooh, you want me in the picture too? So, that was when we were talking about Old Forester and the Whiskey Row series they have out. So it was a great experience. So master taster, taking on this role, what do I do on a regular basis, and how has it changed my life? So all the curiosity throughout my career is what got me to this point. It's not because I'm super smart. It's not because I know a lot about bourbon because I didn't know anything about bourbon. I didn't know where the color came from. I mean, I didn't know it was clear. Starting out, it's because I had a lot of curiosity and a lot of interest in just learning and growing. But I've had to make some changes. So I now go out to the distillery almost every day. Like the past couple months, I've been driving out to Woodford all the time, and I used to be down on campus. And I was with a bunch of women, and now I'm with a bunch of men who are from like, the salts of the earth people, and I'm just cutting it up with them. I wear steel-toed boots and jeans, and I don't have to wear makeup or fix my hair or any of that kind of stuff. But it's fun, and I'm getting to be really hands-on with it now. I'm really getting in the process. That's me drilling into a barrel, and then I learned how to fill them and do all that, so I can really get into it. That's my job out at Woodford. I'm doing production, and I'm learning just beyond what I knew from learning it, reading slides or reading in a book. I'm living and breathing it. And then this is another thing. So a fun day we had at work, myself and one of our PR people, I was like, I want to get women to drink bourbon and have it be not, because one bit of feedback I've gotten from women is that, well, it's very high proof, and then, so they can't really, it's not like a glass of wine where you can really stretch it out. Bourbon, you've got to either drink really slowly or do something to it to lower the proof. But then usually when you add something to it, if you don't add, so I like adding water, that's good to me, but some people are a little intimidated by the flavor of bourbon, which is totally fine. But LaCroix, so this was a fun thing that we thought of, adding LaCroix with flavor in it to Woodford. So we experimented, that's at work. That's why it's awesome to work at Brown-Forman, because that was at work. It was like a Tuesday. And we were just experimenting with Woodford and different flavored LaCroix. So that's kind of a platform, too, of things I like to get into. And then that was at Derby last year. It was my first Derby with the Woodford brand team, and made it on O'Reilly Factor. I don't watch it, but, man, that was pretty cool. That guy's in Waters World, and I had no idea what I was doing. He just was there, and I was like, do you want a $1,000 mint julep? And then he started talking to me. So that was exciting. Amazing how that works out, that you can just say, like, here, a $1,000 mint julep, and people want to talk to you. So that was really a fun. Derby last year was amazing. I mean, I've been to Derby on, like, you take the school bus to Derby. We did that with my family many years, and you pass around, I mean, this is totally irresponsible, but you pass around like the Franzia and tequila. I mean, I just remember these bus trips down there, and it was like 10 o'clock in the morning, and it was crazy, but so much fun. So those days of Derby are gone, my friends. They're no more, but I'm so happy to have these days to look forward to. Last Derby was insane. Your every day of Derby week, we're backside talking about Woodford and all the exciting things we have going on, and pushing the $1,000 mint julep program, not because it's $1,000 and it's Woodford, but because of the story behind it, of the charity that we're working with and the money's going towards. But then also, my favorite memory from Derby last year was standing in the second turn early morning before anybody was there. Chris and Tim Laird were doing a TV spot, and so I just got to hang out on the rail while the horses were working out in the morning and galloping by, and sun was coming up, and it was just amazing, and I was like, wow, look at where I am, and it's because of bourbon and because of Woodford Reserve. Another thing I get to do, so that's more the glamorous side of what I do, and then I get to, on a regular basis, I'm out doing these personal selections. And so that's where we have people that want to buy. It's sort of like our Buy the Barrel program, but it's really just you get to craft your own 2-barrel batch of Woodford Reserve. It's very unique, and I believe we're the only ones that you can actually do that. And it's fun to play with flavor. It gives you an opportunity to see how 2 barrels of different flavor profiles can come together and change and be totally different. And when you do this, so it is expensive up front, but you get 180 bottles of Woodford Reserve, and you get to come out to the distillery and drink 6 barrel-proof samples, and then we go down to 2-barrel batches, and I do that 3 times a day. So not every day, but often. So Yeah, good thing I like to drink bourbon. But one thing about the people out at Woodford, so this box that we have here, that was made by one of the guys who works out there. I'm going to say his name, Daryl Berkeley. He's awesome. And he crafted that not because he wanted to get extra points, just because he loves Woodford. And he did that on the weekend and came in, and because we always carried our samples over in just a cardboard box. And now we have this beautiful little tote. So that's really exciting. And then this is a picture of me just in the lab of nosing a glass. And in the lab, we're always it's very sterile. You have red lights, and every time we test bourbon, it's always under red light because bourbon is a red hue, and that way you can't see variability in the visual color change. It's all about the sensory experience of it. So that's me nosing, kind of nerdy, and then that's just me nosing out outside. I nose a lot. That's me out at the distillery nosing on that. So some things I want to change in the industry. I think it's interesting right now that women in whiskey is such a big deal. And I'm excited that we want to talk about it, and I've been asked to talk about women in whiskey a lot, but to me, I have been around women drinking whiskey for a long time, and so it's not weird or something we need to push, because the sensory group at brown-forman is all women except for one guy, and he's our statistician. Love Paul, but he's our statistician, he's brilliant. So it's all women, and we, on our descriptive panel, it's predominantly women. There's a few men, like Chris is on it, I'm on it. And we sit around and we judge and we critique different whiskeys. And so for me to have an opinion and to have a voice about whiskey is not weird. It's not a new thing. It's something that I've been doing for the past 6.5 years, and people, for some reason or other, have been listening. So I love getting to go out and talk to people and try to get women to want to drink more whiskey, but I'm excited for the day when everybody's just drinking whiskey and bourbon, and that it's not catering to one gender or the other, that we're all just drinking it, and women show up at parties with their bottle of bourbon and talk about it. And the other thing I want to work on is that bourbon should be fun. It should always be fun. And sometimes I feel that it can get very stuffy and a little bit like, if you're gonna drink, because I get that response all the time doing these tastings. People are like, well, how do you drink your bourbon? Somebody came up to me and they said they were gonna put Coke in their Woodford Reserve, and I wouldn't even sell them that. And I'm like, we are in sales, people. Drink it however you like it. But there is some truth to why people want to mix cola with their bourbon. If you know the flavor profile of Coca-Cola or any cola product, it's a lot of citrus, it's a lot of spice, and the color in it is just caramel coloring. But so that complements bourbon really well. Bourbon has fruit, it has grain notes, it has some floral characters, it has a lot of spice, it has a lot of sweet aromatics in it, and those are all complemented really well with the Coca-Cola. So I always say, when people start out drinking, let's just take beer, for instance. I don't think that the craft beer is huge right now. I'm not a fan of really hoppy beer, but some people really like it. But when you started drinking beer, did you start out drinking the ultra craft whatever beer, small craft? No, I mean, you probably start out drinking like Natty Light or Michelob Ultra or something along those lines, because everybody hated the taste of beer when they first had it, most of the time. I'm not saying everybody, but most people. So I always think that there's baby steps, and I've learned too. I made a bourbon punch for a baby shower. I do things like that. Why not? The woman having the baby doesn't drink bourbon anyway, so it was fine. But there were a lot of people there that did like it, or they're scared of bourbon. They're like, bourbon, and it's 10 o'clock in the morning, and I'm like, well, it's fine. So I made a simple bourbon and lemonade. I love bourbon and lemonade. It's refreshing and it's easy to drink, and I have to have other people sample it because I tend to make it a little more strong on the bourbon side, but you can adjust it to your palate. And what it does is that it shows people that bourbon's versatile. You can do a lot with bourbon. You don't have to drink it neat or on the rocks to have it, or you don't have to have it in ultra premium craft cocktail. You can drink it whatever way it tastes good to you because it's so versatile and it's fun to play with. So I want people to just have fun with bourbon and not think of it as this like stuffy thing that they have to be like ultra knowledgeable about and all this. I love that people have that enthusiasm about it, but it's fun. Making bourbon is serious business. There's a lot that goes into making really good quality bourbon. It's not something you can dilly-dally around with. It's something we've perfected out at Woodford Reserve over many years. But drinking bourbon should always be fun. So that is kind of all I have at the moment. But then, so I did mention tomorrow is my birthday. And this is my platform to get to talk about what I want for my birthday. Because because typically on my birthday, I'm always getting gifts and like showered with so many things. And it's kind of embarrassing, but I'm not too embarrassed to not share it with you now. So my closing ask is, I want everybody to go out and drink Woodford Reserve this weekend. Drink it however you like it. Try one of my fun LaCroix recipes or bourbon and lemonade. It is supposed to be cold and kind of gross this weekend, so a hot toddy, that's just Woodford and water and lemonade and honey. Excellent, especially if you have a sore throat. Always good. My next ask is on a personal thing for Green Hill Therapy. We're a very small and not well-known nonprofit, and the kids out there are amazing. One of my other board members is here, Zach Pennington, and we were talking about this. We had a board meeting, and we're going through some growing pains, and it scares me. It's exciting because we have this great trajectory going on, but we have to get there first. And so one of my asks is you use this link to donate some money on behalf of my birthday. Because I know you would have given me some other gift, so you can just, instead of doing that, you can donate. $5 is better than $0, and so that's my birthday wish for Green Hill. And go to the website, check it out. If you ever want to go out there and be around horses or sidewalk and see kids being finally not going to a doctor's office to get their therapy, but going to a barn with horses and playing, but getting a tremendous amount of therapy and making huge improvements in their health. So anytime you want to do that, just let me know. But that is the end of my talk. I hope I wove in some change in there a little bit and inspired you in some way that even people who were told they aren't going to do well in school can do well in their career. I'm still at the beginning of it, so we'll see how it turns out. But so far, so good. And but thank you again for coming and listening and being here today. It's just been a huge honor, and I really appreciate it. Thank you.